I'm Kate Copsey. Welcome to Home Grown Cuisine. Hi, I'm Kate Copsey. Welcome to Home Grown Cuisine. This morning we are going to be talking about asparagus, one of the first veg to come in the garden. We're also going to be doing some stuff in containers. Different containers, how to make a successful container, how to grow veggies in containers, and there are some options for those of you with small places. And so we're going to start with the asparagus, and then we're going to go into the kitchen with Amy Fothergill, the author of The Warm Kitchen. And so she's going to do something with the asparagus, a spicy mesclun mix that I grew in a container, and she's going to pair that with salmon, and she's got a dessert going. I don't know what that is yet. We'll find out. So here we are on the deck, and there are lots of options now for container growing. Think veggies that are maybe meant specifically for containers. Now that doesn't mean that you can't grow them outside in a raised bed, but they are small enough and productive enough that you can actually put them in a container and you can have them on a deck, which is an ideal option for some people. They don't have a backyard. Maybe they're in a condominium or a townhome, or maybe they've just got an apartment. So we're going to look at a couple of options, things that you can do even if you've got minimum space. And the first thing that we're going to look at, all the containers that I use. There are two sorts of containers, ones that have holes in the base and ones that don't. All of these containers have drainage at the bottom, and that is crucial. So we're going to talk about all the different sorts of containers that you can get. But there is one crucial difference between some containers and ones that you can grow in. They all have a hole in the bottom. And for instance, this old weed bucket that I had, I've used that for growing in, but it wouldn't have come with holes in the bottom. I had to put the holes in myself. So it's possible to adapt to that type of thing. And so with drainage, you really need to have good drainage for all your plants. And it doesn't matter whether it's petunias or whether it's tomatoes, they all want drainage. And particularly when they're outside, because you get storms where you get lots of rain coming down, and that fills up those solid containers and your plant doesn't swim. It does not swim well. And that suffocates the roots, and unless you empty it really promptly, it becomes a problem. Now, some of those can be used for cover containers. So you can have like a rosemary maybe in a little black container and put that inside a cover container. And we'll be doing that in just a little while. But once you've picked your container, the second thing to do is find what the potting mix is going to be. Do not go out to your garden and dig up something to put in the container. It's got pathogens in it, it's got rocks in it, it's got clay in it, it's got sand in it, whatever. You don't want that. So invest in a good potting mix. And I've got a couple of options here. This guy was called a potting mix. I want you to look at this. Look at all those big chunks in there. Pieces like that. This is not really good potting mix. It's way too lumpy. This is more a mulch. Don't plant in it. This one, however, is much more friable. Look at the perlite in there. It's a nice, soft kind of soil for your plant. So this is what a potting soil should look like. And if you look at what actually is in this potting mix, it's things that you would recognize. It comes complete with a fertilizer, but it's an organic fertilizer. It has things like leaf compost. It has peanut meal, soy meal, all things that are good for the plant and as an organic fertilizer. So this is a much better mix to put into the plants. So once you've got your container and you've filled it with a good potting mix, then you come to the choice of plants. And as I mentioned, the industry has responded beautifully to people that want to grow in smaller places. And here we have just a few options of container size varieties. We've got tomatoes, we've got lettuce, we've got melons. All of these are container size. They will not get too big. And things that you can look for, apart from if you go onto the internet and look under container varieties. So look for words that maybe donate small, like dwarf this, or maybe something that like a Tom Thumb pea. That generally indicates it's going to be a smaller variety. And different companies have different names for them. But just look at things like that, or just plug in container varieties. And here, as I say, we've got tomatoes and cabbages and melons, and we're going to put those into containers. You will notice that they've all been grown indoors. And I want to show you what I've grown them in. These are little pellets. They arrive just like that. You water them and they expand to that. And at that point, you can put the seed in there. The advantage with these is they ship really lightly, and you get probably a couple of dozen in a little box. And then when you water them, they come to this, put the seed in, plant the whole thing. And that's what I've got here. This tomato was grown in just that little thing, but you can see its roots are coming out the bottom. That means that this little guy is ready to go into a bigger home. But it's still early in the year. And this is another advantage of containers. For those of us that want to put a jump on the season, spring was late. I don't want to put these tomatoes directly in the ground, so I'm going to plant them in a container, because if we get one of those Arctic cold masses come down, which we could still get frost and cold weather for sustained periods, I can just pick up the container, take it into the house for a couple of nights. You can't do that out in the garden. You have to fuss about covering things. So we're going to go and take this little guy and put him right into a container. I'm going to just loosen that just a little bit so those roots can get out. I'm going to push him down firmly, and because this is quite a large container, I'm going to put a little melon in for company. Again, this guy is really in need of a new home, so I'm going to do exactly the same thing. And I'm going to put this guy a little closer to the edge because he's going to want to scramble over the top. And so the container is still damp from the rain we had last night, so you don't have to even water these in. But just notice that these are the fabric containers. And these of course allow air to go into the root zone as these guys get bigger, but it also is very light and it allows water to come outside. Great beauty of these, not only does it root prune things like my mint over there, but at the end of the season, tip it all out, rinse it off, fold it up, use it again next year. One of the big options of something like these smart pots, and they're called smart pots for a good reason. Here we've got some little beans that I'm going to put in. And again, like we've done before, we've got them in the inoculant. These are only going to get 2 foot high. And so we're going to put these, sprinkle a few of those on top. And so we're sprinkling a few of those around. I'm going to put a little bit of potting mix on top, but notice I've already got the support up and ready. And when these guys get a little taller, we can turn them around and they can scramble over the deck railings as well. Really a great option for containers. So now we're going to go and see what Amy's doing in the kitchen.
Yes! The authentic recipes for all of our products are signature to La Morena. The chilies are literally hand-picked for each can. Everything is manufactured in Mexico and imported into the US. La Morena is best known for its quality and authentic flavor, giving our users a taste of home. Stock up on flavor with La Morena.
We're here in the kitchen with my friend Amy Fothergill. Hello again, Amy.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Amy is the author of The Warm Kitchen, a gluten-free cookbook. And you are also gluten-free. Your whole family is gluten-free, but you're also a chef, and she's a much better cook than I am.
Yeah, but she's the gardener. I'm not a good gardener.
So I brought in the greens.
Okay.
I brought in the asparagus. So
Lovely.
What are we cooking?
Oh, well, we're going to start with dessert, which is always nice because it takes a little while for that to cook. So we're having a carrot cake, which you could also substitute zucchini if you grow zucchini in your garden.
You get lots of zucchini.
Yes. And we're going to make some sauteed greens and serve that with some salmon, yummy, yummy, and some sauteed asparagus with gluten-free breadcrumbs.
Okay.
Let's start making the cake.
Okay, do we start on this side with the flowers or that side with the wet?
Let's start with the dry ingredients.
Okay.
So the first thing we're going to add is a flour mix. You can put that in the bowl. And this is a blend of gluten-free flours. I usually use a combination of grains and starch. We're going to add the baking soda and baking powder. Just put that in. It's 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a teaspoon and a half of the soda. We have some gum and salt. Yes. And the gum helps to hold it together.
This one's the gum, right?
Yeah. And then we're putting in cinnamon and ginger. So you always want to start by having your dry ingredients blended separately. And now we're going to go to the wet ingredients. We have 4 eggs, which are at room temperature.
Okay.
So before you add the other ingredients, we're going to beat the eggs just a little.
To break them up.
Yes. And if you notice, you sort of hold the fork like this. Tilt the bowl so it doesn't fly. A little faster, work on your biceps. Okay, and that should be good. So we'll start adding the other ingredients. We have a combination of brown and white sugar. A lot of the recipes in my book, I give you a range of sugar. So you can add more sugar if you like things a little sweeter, and you can add less if you'd like. This is 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar and white sugar. We are going to add some vegetable oil, and we are going to add some applesauce. And the applesauce acts as a binder. It keeps things nice and moist. And if you didn't have applesauce, you could use mashed banana as well. And you could always make your own applesauce if you have an apple tree, that is. So mix that up. All right, so next I'm going to switch implements, and we're going to add the carrots, about 3 cups. You didn't see that, did you? I am known for, I love to cook, but I'm sometimes a little messy, but everything comes out tasty. So forgive me. And then after we add the carrots, we're going to be adding some walnuts. Okay. Do you like walnuts?
Yes.
Yeah. For those who, if you don't have walnuts around, you could use pecans, almonds if you like. And if you don't have them, or you have somebody who has an allergy, you could just
omit them all
You
together.
could just omit them, yes. I'm very, really believe in flexibility. You can even make this recipe with an egg substitute.
Okay.
So some walnuts, 1/2 cup. Some raisins, and another ingredient that's optional is shredded coconut. Kate's not a huge fan of coconut, so we're going to leave it out, but I just want to show you, you would add it at this stage. And
so
then,
all the extra seasoning parts are what we're adding at this point.
And those carrots will plump up and just be delicious. Okay, are you ready?
Okay.
Let's add our dry ingredients. That's good. So if you want to bring the bigger pan first.
Yeah. Put in there.
All right. And we'll see what this looks like. We may be able to do it in one. Oh, it looks pretty good. Always good to have a backup. And the pan's already been greased, just with some oil, the vegetable oil that we added. And if you notice the ingredients, there's no dairy in this, so this is just naturally gluten-free and dairy-free. If you didn't have vegetable oil, you could use melted butter, but then of course it wouldn't be dairy-free. All right, let me just turn this for a moment.
That all fits in.
I know, isn't that nice? All right. All right, put that all in. A little scrape. And then just spread it, make sure it looks nice. And we're going to put this in a 350-degree oven for 35 to 45 minutes. You always want to check it, and then we're going to be ready to taste it.
Great. So this is the carrot cake.
Yes,
Looks
it is.
Lovely.
Thank you. And one way to tell it's done is to press on the middle, and if it bounces back, it's done. If it's still mushy, you want to leave it in the oven. And also, once it starts to pull away from the sides of the pan. So gluten-free baking is a little bit different. The toothpick test doesn't always work.
Okay, so are we going to taste it?
I think we should try a little. Are we ready? Let's try it.
Let's try it.
All right. So again, we grease the pan. It should come out nice and easy. We haven't officially had lunch, so we'll just get a little piece. Cut that into something smaller.
Oh, look at that.
Looks like carrot cake. That is for you, my dear.
Really need a fork?
Oh, I guess we don't need a fork.
Okay, I don't think we need a fork.
I don't think we do either. Let's give it a try.
That was just great, Amy. You can taste the crunch and the cinnamon.
Oh, excellent.
But now I'm going to go out and find some things with containers, which are great options for people that have not got quite as much space. Some wonderful options out there.
Okay, and then we'll cook it up.
Yeah. So we're going to look at a few more different options that you can find for containers here. And remember that it's not a pot and mix, it's more than a mulch. Well, there is some use that you can have for it. This is a regular pot, a rosemary that I overwintered. I'm going to put that ugly black pot in there. I'm going to use a little bit of this mulch to fill in. So we'll just keep doing this until it's filled up round the outside, level on the top, and it will look like the rosemary is in a red container. Much better than a black one. Another option that is around, look at these little guys. This is a mesclun mix from our friends at Botanical Interests, and that doesn't take much in depth. This is a dwarf kale, but look at the bottom of these. These guys fit one on top of the other. This one's got strawberries in it, and you can get several of these, just balancing one on top of the other. Great space saver, but it doesn't have a lot of depth. Now if we look at this one here, look how deep. Look at this guy here. These all fit upright on this post. But what I want you also to look at, look how much deeper this is. These are a couple of little cabbages, but this is also deep enough to have a tomato in it, because the base ones down there are a little bit bigger even. So you have 5 pots lined up on a post. And so that's just a great idea for space saving. So this is a spicy stir-fry mix grown in a little smart pot, and I think we're going to chop this down. We're going to stir-fry it and put it under salmon. That sounds like a wonderful combination. So let's go and see what Amy's doing. So Amy, I've got asparagus and I've got some spicy greens to stir fry.
Oh, this sounds great.
What are we going to do with them?
We're going to saute the asparagus
Okay.
in a simple olive oil, add some butter at the end, and some gluten-free breadcrumbs.
Ooh.
And then I think we will wilt the greens and add a little balsamic for flavor and serve it with the salmon. How does that?
And are we going to be able to use some of this
Oh, yes.
lemon thyme?
Yes, we'll put that on top at the end.
Okay.
All right, so let's start with the asparagus. And we are going to add just a little bit of olive oil. And I'm going to eyeball this about maybe 1 or 2 teaspoons.
hot.
It is. It should sort of dance around. And this might sizzle a little. Just a little. Stand back, people.
Okay.
And now let's check on the greens. So the pan should be nice and hot. I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to add some olive oil, and then we're going to cook the greens. What did you do before you brought them to me?
Before well, they were growing in a little small pot, which is, and I started them all from seed.
Wow, that
And
looks great.
Just all sorts of spicy things.
And you
So
washed it, and then
we've washed it, trimmed it, washed it, and it's ready to wilt.
excellent. Let's add some olive oil. Maybe again, just a couple teaspoons there.
And
Go ahead and add it in. So while Kate is adding the greens, that's a nice mix that she got from the garden. The asparagus mix is so fresh and so tender and young. It'll be done very soon. And I might just lower that heat a tiny bit. All right, so we're going to give it a stir, and now we need to season it. And we're just going to season it with a tiny bit of pepper and a little bit of salt. I like kosher salt, a fine kosher salt. And now that it's almost cooked, you can see it's bright green, it should be tender. We're going to add just a tiny bit of butter, about a tablespoon, right in the center. And stir that around. And we have some gluten-free breadcrumbs, and this is some breadcrumbs we found that are very nice because they're fine.
Very fine.
Yes, we're going to
Work well.
just add this. And this is optional if you don't want to, if you don't have gluten-free breadcrumbs, you don't want to put them in. It's fine, and it looks a little dry right there in the pan, so this is where the part of cooking where you really have to look at what you're doing and say, okay, let's add some more butter, and then we're going to take this off the heat, right off to the side here, and I'm going to shut this off.
Should I be stirring?
And now you can start stirring that.
All right.
Oh, that looks great. So you can hear the sizzle, which is excellent. That means that the heat is right. You don't want it burning. We're just really doing a wilt. And I'm just going to add a touch more of oil, just a touch. And then once we are a little closer to being done, we're going to finish it with balsamic vinegar. And that looks pretty well done. So Kate, if you would just give it a splash of balsamic.
Have a splash?
Oh, a little more splash, a little more of a splash. Yeah, that looks great. All right, so we added a little balsamic. I like to use that. It's definitely something you don't have to put in, or you could use another vinegar. I like the flavor. It's a little sweet.
Is this ready to go?
It is. Let's put it onto the plate. And we're going to be cooking in the same pan today, so we're just going to give that a quick wipe in just a moment. Set it off to the side. All righty. Ooh, that's what you should hear, a nice sizzle. And salmon does not take very long to cook. It's very quick, actually. Okay, so we're going to cook the salmon, which we're going to serve with the greens. And the salmon goes so nicely with all the different vegetables from the garden. So we have lots of options. And this fish, if you look, the pieces are small. If you were cooking a bigger size piece, it would just take a little longer. I like to cut them into more individual pieces. And it should be 3-4 minutes, not very long. And we might end up flipping it over. We'll just have to take a look. So what you're looking for is when you look at the fish, about halfway through, it's starting to get opaque or pink as opposed to the orange. So you're going to get your spatula. Be very careful because it might splatter you. And just grab underneath and ready for the sizzle. Beautiful. And notice how I'm flipping, sorry, Kate. Try to flip it away from you so we don't hurt anyone. Oh, look at that nice color. And then that needs probably about another 2 more minutes. And after about 2 more minutes, it really does not take long to cook the salmon in the pan. It'll be done. You want to almost leave a little bit orangey in the middle because it'll keep cooking. Okay, I think we are really close to getting done. Kate, if you would flip those over for me. Just be careful. You can hear it's still sizzling. It's up.
You said tip away, didn't you?
It's
Look
okay.
at the colour of that.
That looks gorgeous. And I think it needs a little squeeze of lemon. Again, optional. If you don't have lemon, it's okay. Right on top.
It's going to sizzle.
Yes, right on top. I'm going to shut the heat off. And I think we should put the thyme as well. And then we'll plate. And you see how she's stripping the leaves off? That's what's nice about thyme. You almost don't even have to chop it up. Just take it from the top, pull it down, and the leaves will come off. Oh, that looks lovely.
Let's put a few little sizes.
Okay.
How's that?
That looks great. So I'll take the
And this
spatula.
was a lemon thyme, so it should complement.
Oh, yes, very nicely.
All right. We're going to take this one.
Right there, if you would, and maybe one more piece. Save the other one for later. Oh, look at that. So we have our lovely dish, most things from the garden, the asparagus that Kate picked, the green mix that you grew in the container,
Yeah.
and some lovely salmon that goes so nicely with this
With the
dish.
lemon thyme on top. This looks lovely, Amy.
Oh, and
yeah, just crunch on the asparagus and whatever. So can we taste it now?
I think it's time to taste it. I have a handy fork for you. Let's try the salmon and the greens together. And you can see how easy this was. So cooking at home, almost restaurant quality food, is very easy. Just keep it simple, keep the ingredients fresh. That's all you need.
That salmon is beautiful.
The greens are delicious. Thank you so much.
That was delicious, Amy. Thank you so much for your expertise in coming on the show today. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed everything we did with cooking and gardening. We'll be back next time with Homegrown Cuisine.